All right. Well, I don't really want to be outside right now, but I need to move my truck because it's going to be in the way when the snowplow man comes. So I'll go ahead up and do that. As you can see, it's snowing again. The positive side of that, though, is that it isn't as cold, so that's good. But it is snowing again anyway. I just took some of my Chinese herbal cough syrup, and that's helping quite a bit. It's nice. It's almost like a sweet molasses. It coats my throat, and it seems to quiet the cough quite a bit too. And so it's good stuff. But yeah. Anyway, it's a challenge, I'll tell you, to walk through here with all this snow. It's been a brutal winter. I'll be really happy when it's over with. I listened to a guy on YouTube here who has a channel called Deep South Homestead, and he seems pretty knowledgeable about all this stuff. And what he says is that we're in a cycle right now. It isn't man-made climate change that's causing all this weirdness. We're actually in a cycle. And of course we know that weather is cyclical. That branch there was hanging out of that tree ready to fall down, and so I pulled it down the other day and I just dragged it over here for now. Because if the lady here that owns the property, who's in her 80s, was to come out here to go to her car, and that suddenly decided just to come down when she was under it, it wouldn't be the most healthy thing for it to happen to her. So I made a point of getting it down before that could happen. But anyway, as I was saying, though, I watch out for things like that here. One of the people who subscribes to the channel was asking me about my situation here, if I pay rent or if anybody can come here and camp or whatever. And no to both of those points. I don't pay rent here, and no, not everybody can come here to camp. I'm a friend of the family, and I was offered to camp here for that reason. And in fact, I need to leave because there is one family member who's very upset that I'm here, and it's causing a lot of trouble. And this person is kind of a volatile going person too, and you know, bad things may happen, basically. You know, he may do something bad to me, and I may do something bad to him in retaliation, and that won't be good. I don't want that situation to occur. And so I realize that it's time for me to go before that happens, because I'm not really looking to be hurt, and I'm not looking to hurt anybody either, you know. But I know I won't take a beating voluntarily, so I mean, anything might happen. That's the problem. Anyway, so no, I mean, not only is it not a place for people to come and camp, it's not even really a place for me to be anymore, you know. But it was another family member who was a friend of mine who offered to let me camp here when he found out that I was in the woods behind Walmart. He was worried about me, and so he allowed me to camp here. Well, he had to ask his mother, because his mother is the property owner. All this actually belongs to her. You know, this was her and her husband's property. Her husband has passed away, and she's still here, and this is her property for as long as she lives, you know. But anyway, it was with her permission that I was allowed to stay here. And she was a little reluctant because she was concerned about issues with the police and so on. which is valid because it's actually illegal. Even though they're the property owners, you know how it goes. You don't actually own anything, you know. And ultimately, the government has the say over what you can and can't do, even on your own property. And so technically, my being here isn't allowed, even though the property owners allow it. So, like I say, anyway, to the subscriber who asked about that, that's the situation. Um, the police are aware that I'm here, though, because um, when my cat Muella was killed by a fisher, somebody accused me of killing her. They accused me of beheading her, which I didn't do. I never would. And I was really hurt by the accusation. But anyway, this person called the police on me and told them where I am. And so I actually had the police out here. I had the Ontario Provincial Police out here within a few days of my arriving, because Muella was killed the second day we were here. And it was like the third or fourth day that I had the police out here anyway. Because I was being investigated as possibly having decapitated my cat. Anyway, I'm no longer friends with that person. I'll just say that. I'm no longer friends with that person. So the police, anyway, are aware that I'm here, and they've chosen not to do anything about it. I think mostly because they know that, you know, I'm not bothering anybody here. The property owners are good with me being here. It's not like I'm squatting on the land without their permission or anything. And so there's really no issue other than that it's technically illegal. And if they put me out of here, where am I going to go? But to some place where I will be an issue. You know, I'll be camped somewhere where I can't legally camp, or I'll be you know, on the streets, wandering around on the street or whatever, you know. And that was their concern. And then, of course, at that point, I'd become an issue for them. And the police don't really like dealing with me anyway. They prefer pretty much to stay away from me, because when I was young, the police abused me pretty badly, and I became more trouble than I was worth. I just decided I was going to be such a big asshole anytime I dealt with the police. That they'd hate to deal with me, so they'd leave me alone and go after a softer target. And that's what I did. And I made a point of just being a thorn in their sides anytime they tried to interfere with me. And so they came to the conclusion that I wasn't worth the bother. And they still watch me, and they still are. There's always the hope, of course, that they could nail me for something. But at the same time, they're not particularly anxious to deal with me unless they're able to get me on some big charge. If they could get me on something where they could put me in prison for decades or whatever, then they'd be more than happy to. But it's not worth their while to deal with an asshole like me, basically. That's what it boils down to, if they don't have to. So they really are reluctant to, they're really reluctant to deal with me. That's what it boils down to anyway. I mean, I'm just not somebody they want to be bothered with. But anyway, the bottom line is this. No, this isn't a campground, and this isn't a situation where anybody can come here and camp. And I don't pay rent. I do some maintenance on the property and whatnot. And I do that of my own free will. I was never asked to do it, and it was never part of the deal as far as you can camp here if you do this, that, and the other thing. I was just told I could camp here. But I don't like to take advantage of people's kindness either. And if I can be of some service to these people who are being of service to me, then I believe I have an obligation to do that. And honestly, I enjoy it. I'm good at that sort of work, and I really enjoy it. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction to do that sort of work anyway. And if I can do that sort of work for people who have been kind to me, and maybe brighten things up a bit for them, or make things safer for them, or whatever, then all the better. Like the fact that I was able to recognize, because you couldn't hardly see it, but see, with me, up in that tree there, that's where that big limb was. And for me, I see things like that right off. Like it's just like I've got a trained eye or something that not everybody has. Most people would walk right past that and never notice it. In my case, I spotted it right off, and I thought, oh shit, that there could be a problem. Because if that decides to come down at the wrong time, and if it lands on top of the 83-year-old lady, or whatever, if it landed on top of me, it'd be an annoyance, and maybe it'd scuff me up a little bit or something. I might end up with a cut or a scratch out of it. If it lands on top of her, it could knock her to the ground, and she could end up breaking a bone or anything, So, anyway, and because I care about her, because she's been very kind to me, and she's a really nice lady, really good lady, and she's a Christian lady and a very, very, very just a kind-hearted and decent person. I, even more so that I don't want anything bad like that to happen to her. I'm kind of protective of her that way. And so if I'm able to eliminate something like that before it becomes an issue, then I feel like my presence here isn't just me being here and taking advantage, which I would never want to do. Anyway, I posted a video a little while ago about Corky the dog that is a friend of mine's dog. And the dog is now in a contest. I'm going to ask you all again to vote for Corky. Corky actually has to get into the top 5 today. Corky's now at number 8, and he's got to get into the top 5 within I think it's like 8 hours, or he's disqualified. So for anybody who wants to do me a favor and vote for Corky, this would be the time to do it. I have it posted over on the community section of the of this channel, the linkage, and it says caption vote for Corky. I also have put it in comments on this channel, and I've also put it in the video description, because oftentimes comments with video links get removed by YouTube. But if it's in the description, it'll stay. Because sometimes people comment and they put up links that aren't really legitimate and could lead to hacking on different people's channels and stuff. It could lead to hacking and all sorts of stuff. So as a security measure, YouTube removes those. But only I have control over what's in the description. So if I put it in the description, it stays. Well, because that's my responsibility then, whatever's in the description. But anyway, as you can see, the snow's quite deep. I brought the truck over here. That way when the man comes with the plow, he can push everything back through here, and my truck won't be in his way, because he's kind of banking it up along here. You can see how deep the snow is. The snow that's fallen since last night when I parked the truck. When I parked the truck, this was all level and clear. You can see, though, how the difference, anyway. Yeah, and it's still falling, so I should actually walk up to the road and make sure that the garbage is okay. I put the garbage out yesterday, which was a day early, and then I was just too sick yesterday to bother bringing it back in and then bringing it out again today. And I'll go up and make sure that nothing's tore it apart or anything. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to do a video later on demonstrating how I cook with the candle. Again, a subscriber has asked me to explain that, so I will. Now, this cooking with a candle, though, I should be clear, and I think most people will know this anyway, because it's common sense. I hope y'all will. This is only good for reheating food that's already cooked. You know, don't put a raw pork chop in a frying pan and try cooking it over a candle, because you'll never get enough heat that it will be safe, you know. But if you have leftovers that are already cooked, or like canned foods that have been pre-cooked at the factory, and so on like that, this candle thing to heat up your leftovers, or your oh my gosh, hey, this candle thing to heat up your leftovers, or your I'll give this a shake so it's not covered in snow. That's my garbage that I put here yesterday. Nothing's tore it open, which is good. That make it more visible. Yeah, anyway, you know, canned soups, canned stews, leftovers. Like when I make my roast pork stew, I put it in the margarine tubs, and then I put a you know, I can just dump that into a pot and I can reheat it over a candle. But you know, because that's already cooked, all it needs is to have heat applied to it to make it palatable. So anyway, it's very good for that. You can get a lot of heat off a candle. There was one time years and years ago, I got into a situation where I was driving an old car and I had to pull off the road for some reason. And when I went to pull back onto the roads were really bad. It was winter time and it was terrible cold. It was just bitterly cold. And when I went to pull back onto the road, the car just went sideways into the ditch, and I was stuck. I wasn't getting out, and it was freezing cold. And anyway, well, something happened. What was it now? I couldn't start the engine either. That was the other thing. Something happened. The car went sideways into the ditch, and I couldn't start the engine. That's what it was. So I wasn't even able to use the heater to stay warm. I don't know why I couldn't start the engine, but I couldn't. And no cell phones in those days, of course. And I was out in the country in the middle of nowhere. Eventually a farmer came along and saw me stuck there. And he went back to his farm and he got his tractor. And he pulled me up out of the ditch. And when he was at the farm, he called my mechanic for me to come and pick the car up, which he did. And I got a ride in the town with my mechanic then. Because my mechanic had a flat deck car hauler. And he took it back to his shop and he fixed whatever was wrong with it. It just so happened that when it went into the ditch, that was the time something else decided to happen, and the car wouldn't start anymore. Couldn't even roll it over. It just, you know, you turn the key, it just click, click, click. Might have been the starter solenoid or something, I don't know. But anyway, I can't remember now. I knew at the time, but I can't remember now. It was a long time ago. Decades ago. But anyway, the thing is, I had a little kit in the car that I carried, and one of the things that I had was a little tea light candle. And I put that tea light candle on the dashboard and I lit it. And believe it or not, that kept the interior of that big old car. And it was a great big old Chev car. It was. I had a 1967 Chev Bel Air 4-door car. And if you ever saw a 1967 Chev Bel Air, you know what I'm talking about. Chrome and bent seats and steel, you know. And big car, you know, a big interior to it too. And Anyway, that car, I put the candle up on the dashboard and lit it. And that candle kept the interior of that car warm in the bitter cold for hours. I sat there for hours until help came. And I was just lucky that this farmer happened to come along. In those days, there wasn't a whole lot of traffic on the back roads, and especially when the weather's like this. But I'm sure that farmer was only out because he needed to be for some reason and not because he wanted to be. And he come along and he stopped and talked to me, and he said, "You just hold on, I'll go get my tractor." You know, people back then would do things like that for you pretty easily. Nowadays, not so much, but in those days, it was a different world, you know. That was one of the better things about the world back then. There was a lot of bad in the world back then too, but that was one of the better things. Anyway, the farmer, he said, "I'll go get my tractor and a chain and I'll get you up out of there." And he said, "Can I call anybody for you?" And I said, "Well, yes, the car won't start." And I give him the number for my mechanic. I said, "If you can call him, he'll come out here and he'll float the car on out of here and I can get it back into town with him." So that's what he did anyway. And a while later, the guy came out with the float. The man came out with the tractor, the farmer did, and he hooked onto it with a car with a chain there. I helped him. I got underneath the car so that he didn't have to do it in the snow and everything, and I connected the chain to the car, and he connected the other end to his tractor, and he pulled me up out of the ditch. And then I waited. He went back to his farm and got his truck again. And then when he went past me, he stopped again just to check on me to make sure I was okay. And he went off into town. He told me if I was still there when he came back through, that he'd stop again and he'd help me, you know. So anyway, very, very nice person, very, very good person, you know, to have done that for me. I was always very appreciative of that. But anyway, but that candle kept me warm in that car for hours, because I sat there for several hours before that farmer come along, and there was nobody else. I sat there for a long time and nobody else come. Anyway, actually, I'll tell you another story from when I was young. I was driving an old car with a free in the tree standard transmission. That's the gear shift up on the steering column, and it's like an H pattern, and you shift, you know, like that. And you got a clutch and everything. It's a standard transmission. And a lot of people now don't even know what that is because they haven't made them in so long. But I was driving a car with a free in the tree transmission, and it was on icy back roads up above the village of Lanark. And anybody who's ever been up above the village of Lanark, especially if you were ever to go up there years ago, the roads are better up there now than they used to be. But if you went up there in the 1980s, even at the best of times, the roads were horrible. And you were going straight uphill and straight downhill and all that. Well, I was young and I was kind of inexperienced, you know. And I'm going down this hill and it's glare ice. And I realized I'm going way too fast because I was in third gear, you know, I was in highway gear. And I realized I'm going way too fast and I panicked. So I shoved in the clutch and I pulled the lever up into second gear, released the clutch, and the wheels, once the wheels caught and they started spinning. Now the other thing is too, going straight downhill, and it was a straight drop off the side of the hill down, you know, I don't know how far, probably 30 or 40 feet. So if you left the road, you were going straight down, you know, into the woods, a good 30 or 40 feet straight down. And so you'd be killed, you know. Anyway, I hit that. And I put it in the second gear, and of course, that was a mistake. You never downshift when you're in the process of going down an icy hill. And I learned that lesson the hard way. And what happened was, when the wheels caught there, of course, the ass end of the car, the wheels started to spin, and the car started to go sideways, and it was going to go off the edge of the road. Instead of going forward, I was going sideways. Anyway, I at least had the presence of mind to shove the clutch back down to the floor So that put me into neutral, would stop that process. And I basically coasted down that glary ice hill in neutral and steered. And halfway down the hill, there was a curve. And I remember steering and just holding on for dear life. And I'll tell you, I was sweating bullets. I was scared. And I was in the center of the road going around that curve. If anybody had met me coming the other way, it would have been a terrible accident. But I had no choice because I would have went off the road otherwise. So I had to just gamble that I wasn't going to meet anybody. Anyway, it scared me real bad, I'll tell you. And taught me a valuable lesson anyway, too, you know. I never thought of it until that happened. I just downshifted the transmission because I figured I'm moving way too fast and I'm going to have to use the transmission to engine brake, which is a good thing to do. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But you don't do that when you're like already starting down the ice-covered hill. That's all. It's too late to do that then. But anyway, that's another story for you. Look at all the ice built up here. Holy smokes, that's all got to be done away with. It never ends, I'll tell you. It just never ends. Yeah. Anyway, there's Rocky. He's on my bed there, sleeping. He actually put in a pretty good night because I had the heat on the whole time. So Rocky's had a pretty pleasant night of it anyway, compared to how it usually is here. Oh. Anyway, I do feel quite a bit better today, but I'm still sick. I think I'm over the worst of it, though. But I know I have to be careful. I'm a tough old bird, but even I can die. So, I gotta be careful. That's all. I'm waiting for my glasses to fall out here. I can't see anything. Oh, jeez, look at this, eh? Just to give you an idea of what things are like around here, though. I mean, this is what we're dealing with here in the wilds of Canada. See, it keeps the door from closing properly. Look how thick this ice is. Holy smokes, man. Sakes alive. Okay, there we go. Yeah, anyway, that's the bottom line. Is gotta... Oh, goodness. All right. Good enough. Pull that up there. Oh, I can't believe it. What a crazy situation. Okay. All right. Wow, there we go. The door should close better now. That'll help with the situation with the heat. Yeah, that's better. There's still a bit of a gap, but it's not like it was. All right. I'm going to hang up the phone now. I'm going to take more of my Chinese cough syrup. And I'm going to get back in the bed. And we'll see you all later.